Hey guys, welcome to the first exclusive episode of the Founders Roundtable. Today we have two of the most respected and celebrated founders, entrepreneurs of companies which has built a category of its own. So, just brief about what our agenda will be for today. Today's agenda will be what are the key ingredients of a great hire. So, hiring, as you know, is a process which takes you through 0 to 1 to 100 as the company scales, the processes change. Businesses change, they scale up. And to make the right hire is one of the most crucial jobs of a founder or the leadership team. So, we'll discuss on this. About Instahyre, we are a platform which allows companies to find talent with 10x more accuracy and 10x less time compared to any other solutions in the market. And we have been trusted with around 10,000 plus companies. Some of them are Amazon, Walmart, Google, PayPal, others. Without much ado, let's start off today's roundtable. Today, we have two of the most respected entrepreneurs in the Indian ecosystem. We have Ankur Aggarwal, who is the co-founder of Dunzo, and we have Aloke Bajpai, who is the group CEO and co-founder of ixigo. So thank you Ankur, thank you Alok for taking out time and coming to my show. So how's everything? And I would like to call upon Ankur to give just a brief introduction about himself and what exciting things Dunzo is doing. So over to you, Ankur.
Thanks, Sarbojit, and thank you guys for hearing me out. My name is Ankur, and I right now take care of some of the major hiring in technology in Dunzo, and I work very closely with all the leaders and make sure that we have a really good hiring as a process. And earlier, I was taking care of the platform team, and now we have a really good manager director who is taking care of the platform team right now. So I am looking at the hiring as a problem statement for Dunzo in technology side. And before Dunzo, I was working with SlideShare, and I worked in a B2B travel company in past. This is my brief introduction. Yeah.
Great.
And, yeah. Sorry. Over to Alan.
Yeah. So Alok, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, hi. So I run Ixigo, which is one of the leading travel platforms in the country. We started out as a informational or utility platform, which helped you compare and search for prices or gave you train tracking and PNR prediction. But over time, as our traffic scaled, we realized that we can also monetize by selling some tickets. So we started, selling flight, bus, and train tickets. During the last 2 years, despite COVID, we have managed to continue growing, and I think we've been extremely lucky to be sitting here after seeing zero revenue for several months. I take care mostly on the business, marketing. To some extent, I'm involved in growth and product, but largely that's Rajneesh, my co-founder, who takes care of product tech and growth. So I'm largely looking at all the internal functions, HR, finance, support, marketing, as well as to some extent on brand and customer experience. Customer experience is something very close to our heart because at ixigo, we want to build the best customer experience in travel, which we believe still does not exist.
Mhm. Great. So the discussion will be on several topics. So we have divided into junior hiring, mid-level hiring, and senior hiring, top management, cultural values. So everything will be there in this, and we have a bunch of questions from our audiences. So my first question, like Alok, you can start off. So my first question is, what makes it the most crucial selection factor? Like, is it the cultural values, or what kind of things you see, like, which makes it the make or break, which is a kind of thing.
I think it's a mix of several things. It's very hard to put a thumb on one particular thing, but if I had to boil it down to one thing, it has to be cultural fitment,
Mhm.
which is largely about attitude and less about skills, right? And at my round, which is usually the final round, right, I do spend most of the time looking at that aspect, right? Whether the person aligns with our values, with our way of working, and has the key cultural traits that we are looking for in a great hire. And those are mostly about attitude. And I actually do not ask any questions on the skills at all.
Okay. Okay, nice. So Ankur, what is your most crucial selection factor?
So I usually take rounds across board, sometimes tech, sometimes culture, sometimes introductory call also.
Hmm.
So I think for me, it's most of the attitude of a candidate, along with technology skill is definitely there. But the attitude and the culture fit is a must to have, because I think uh, we can definitely help and train people based upon the requirements. And nobody is perfect in terms of technology, because technology is ever growing, and like we are heavy on Golang, and it is very
Hmm.
hard to find Golang developer by default. So that is a part of the onboarding sessions, and we have set up the proper onboarding session in terms of time. But I think
Hmm.
culturally and this attitudes, I think it's very hard to fix. So we believe in that if the guy is good in attitude, learning attitude, and he can have a different opinion over different discussion, but he should understand, and if his mission is matching to our mission, then why not? At junior level, definitely it is true for all the level, but at junior level, it also makes sense for a bit more into the learning area, where is the guy ready for to learn more, because I think not everyone is perfect in different languages, but is he ready to learn?
Hmm.
So that's what we
Okay.
are looking, because when we started hiring for Golang, it is very hard to find only Golang developers. So
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Perfect. One thing, Ankur, I wanted to ask you is like, how do you gauge, like, so you will be hiring a lot of managers, like mid-level managers, senior level managers, or junior level managers. Managers are one who keep the team intact, keep them motivated. What are the things you gauge in a, like, what makes a good manager? What are the things you gauge in a good manager? And also, most of my audience and I also want to ask is, what are the 3 4 red flags which you are always wary of, like, this is a red flag and we should not go ahead? And what are the things, like, people know how to gauge a good person, but just elimination is quite difficult. So what are these red flags which you have seen throughout? So Ankur, you can ask, and then I will go to Alok. Yeah.
sure. So we have set up a competency level at each level, starting from intern to the DOE and the VP level.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, like I said, that I usually do all round of interviews, starting from screening, sometimes taking some tech round, sometimes taking the people round based upon different as per the level. And for the senior level, we start looking at the filtering the candidate that suits best to our industry or whatever the problem statement that we are looking for. So I will not say that I will reject on some basis, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely we all have set up some looking. It's very hard to understand the candidate looking at the resume by default, because I really found really good candidates have not put everything on resume. So I will say we filter resume, but not to that strict level. We
Mm-hmm.
assume that they have done based upon their past experience. We try to understand their resume. One thing we always look for is a guy has achieved something in his previous organization in the past, and ha- have he gotten any promotion or next level achievement in the similar company,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
or he is getting promotion by changing the company.
Okay.
Finally, he
Okay.
should get at least one promotion at least in being the same company. That
Mm-hmm.
is very positive for me. And
Acha.
having spent at least 2 3 years in a company where we are looking for,
Mm-hmm.
because if a guy change company every year, then it is a high probability that guy will change our company in next year also. So I personally look for the guys who have at least stick to at least one company for 2 3 years in his past. Yes, there might be some different reason, like people have changed the company for different reason. That is
Mm-hmm.
acceptable. But it's not true for all 5 companies or 6 companies in his resume that he has changed every year. So
Mm-hmm.
I will say that is one thing I really look in the resume when I'm filtering them. But again, this is not the hard criteria, because there can be different criteria. There can be different reason and the setup. Like COVID is one example where lots of
Hmm.
migrants happened because
Layoffs.
of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And during the process, we have clearly mentioned that there is a competency at each level. So we have very last 2 years we have invested heavily in setting up the process for each and every candidate. We are
Hmm.
making sure that he or she has the best user experience in the interview process, because during the interview we are not the only one who are judging them. They
Hmm.
are also understanding Dunzo during the interview process, because we only have 5 to 10 hours to interview them, to understand them. They also have the 10 hour to understand what is Dunzo about. So we give them a clarity about each and every interview process, what is the reason for this interview, and why we
Okay.
are doing that.
Okay. Okay. Alok, so what are the, like, how do you gauge? Yeah.
Yeah. So look, for us, we have a very strong bias towards cultural fitment for multiple reasons, because we've seen that uh, the best folks we have hired may have started by being hired for a certain role, but over time their role has evolved and they've started doing more and more things right within the
Hmm.
system. So if I just use the historical data from the last decade or so, uh, the best hires, if we had hired them just for skill, they would not be doing what they were doing today, right?
Hmm.
So in cultural fitment, there's a few values that we test them against. For us, empathy is a very strong core cultural value of ours. When I say empathy, it's about like feeling what the other person is going through and being able to sort of give some emphasis on beyond just yourself and your biases. Because I think in today's world, data keeps changing, things could be different, somebody else might have a different point of view, and it's very important to appreciate that. So
Hmm.
listening capability, humility, ability to accept that you're wrong, ability to acknowledge your failures or shortcomings, that's very important. Because we've seen a lot of people who are full of confidence, but who fail in the system because of that overconfidence, right?
Yeah.
And I think also we look for resilience, because no matter what you sell to them as your story or your vision, end of the day things go wrong, things don't go as per plan. uh,
Hmm.
Go through tough times. We've seen quite a few, and it's very important to see if the candidate has some resilience that is demonstrated, either in how they have come out from, let's say, maybe a tier 2 college and still find their way to good
Hmm.
companies, or then resilience could come in many ways, right? Like you could be coming from a very small town and you could have made your way to a Delhi, Bangalore, and built your career out of it, right? That itself demonstrates a lot. um, but we also kind of test the ability to change your mind, because like I was saying, in today's world data points can change. So if you are extremely, I mean, for a leader, for example, being opinionated is great, right? You need to have
Hmm.
opinion, you need to have strong world views, but you also need to be able to open to change your mind, right? Especially for management, managers, senior managers, leaders,
Yeah.
uh, challenging their point of view with what you feel, and seeing if they're open to changing their mind, or if they're open to looking at things with a fresh perspective. Very important, because uh, I think startups are the places where a lot of leaders who come with assumptions basically realize that their assumptions were wrong, because things change very quickly, right? And most importantly, I would say we look for authenticity, right? Because some people try very hard to pretend to be what they're not, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and it's okay to acknowledge, where you come from, who you are, what your shortcomings are. So essentially, going back to everything I've said so far, I mean, basically, are you just trying to be yourself in the interview, right? Or are you just trying to pretend to be someone else, right? That's a red flag for me. Like if that starts to happen. Um, and irrespective of all this, I think it's very important to um, basically ask about interests outside of work, because
Hmm.
curiosity, I believe, like no matter how good your cultural fitment and skills are, if you're not curious, you're going to become a dinosaur soon, right? Because
Hmm.
in today's world, again, awareness about what's happening in your industry, domain, or anything you're interested in. If you play basketball, like we could talk about that. But basically,
Yeah.
is there something interesting that you indulge in, which you can talk about and have a meaningful discussion about, because that sort of helps drive more energy at work as well, right? So we look at all these things.
Great. So, great insights, Ankur and Alok. So, we have different views from both of you founders. So, my next question will be for like Alok. You can start. The next question is for we have talked about the mid-level manager. Now, for the junior hires, which kind of things which will take the upper hand? Like according to you, which will be like skill or aptitude or attitude of the person, or mix of all the three.
Look, I think for me, because I usually take, and that's another unique thing about us. Like, I don't think we hire anybody who doesn't go through a founder round till date. And we are now more than 400 people, right? So it's either me or Rajneesh that takes the final round, because we're so obsessed about cultural fitment that we don't want to delegate that to someone else, right? But basically, I think. I think at both junior and senior levels, right? Just that obsession about, are we hiring somebody who we would enjoy being in a room with, right? And uh, has the right integrity, empathy, etc. that I talked about, right? So I think I think it's that at all levels, and I think for skills, look, we have actually hired people who sometimes ranked average on skill set, but had very strong quotient for learning aptitude, integrity, being upfront about what they don't know, right? We actually value those things a lot,
Mhm.
because that proves that you're willing to acknowledge and work on things, right?
Exactly. Okay. Okay. Great. Ankur, your thoughts on this?
So it's a similar view where we also try to look into all three items. So
Mm,
we also have like a culture segment round where we try to understand what has happened in the past, what are the problem statement. Still not going to the technology part, what are the challenges the guy has looked into. Was he part of some of the production issues that company has faced in the past? That is one of the key understanding that managers always want to have, where there are cases where sometimes the exposure is not their production, so it's not negative. But if
mm,
the exposure to production was there, then you should have seen some of the production issues for sure. So what was
okay.
your, because as per my learning, like I've been a developer by heart from like last 12 years now.
Mm,
So whatever I have learned mostly in the production issues more than what during the training or daily day-to-day work.
mm,
So like I have, so these are learning that some of the production issues, what are the things like people have learned from different experience. So we all look, try to understand what is the thing that they have learned in last 2 years. That is really critical, because if the guy is trying to is growing in his old organization or is in career, then he must have seen changes in his day-to-day role in
mm,
last 2 years for sure. So
yes.
that we look for, and I think culturally, we always look for like guy should be honest. I remember I was interviewing a guy who was from hardware background. Sam, I'll not name the hardware company, and
Mm,
the his all his round was perfect, and I was doing a culture round. So we did a debrief internally. We realized that the guy has done really good in the interview, and he was really happy to learn more about the application system, and he was happy to move into from the hardware background to software side. And we are
okay.
happy, we will be more happy to offer him because intention is clear and he is ready to learn and he has cracked all our interview process. So why? So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. For the junior hires, we majorly see like basically what you have told, like attitude and aptitude, the hunger to learn, curiosity is the major part. Skills and all can be trained, like Alok and Ankur. So I think we both agree
yep.
on this part, right? Okay. And now comes one of the most crucial question, which is about. So I will go with Ankur first on this. Like, what are your thoughts on the, like, how do you do your top management hiring, which is the, like, the top level, exactly the top level, and they will have a lot of things coming into, like, they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of they have a mindset. Okay,
Mhm.
they have a certain kind of social media followers and such certain things, which is not there for junior and mid level, which will be like, and for top management everything should be handled with like utmost care, and cultural fit is the major issue. because most of them are might be skillful. So how do you go about this, the most crucial part, which is a make or break for many companies? Yeah, Ankur, you can go first.
So for the senior, so I think I will say for all the, we always look for the chemistry. But for the senior level, I think the chemistry is the most important part. Because for
Mm-hmm.
junior level, there can be different reason. His mentor is there, his friend is there in the company, or different pay scale and different reason. For the senior hiring, like anyone around SSC1 or maybe SC3 plus or EM
Mm-hmm.
plus or maybe DA, the
Mm-hmm.
guy should be his vision and Dandu vision should be mapping. There might be
Okay.
different ways to think of the same problem statement. That is his
Mm-hmm.
opinion. We are okay with that. But the vision toward what we are trying to build in a long term play should be there, and we should appreciate each other's theory about reaching to that vision is okay. But that chemistry should match in first 2 3 rounds where we expect, and we are very open that during the interview process we give them enough liberty to ask any of the question to any of the interview panel. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's no secrecy here, and we are all transparent that this is the problem statement we are trying to solve. This is, there might be 100 ways to solve it, and people might have different opinion, but this is how we are trying to solve it, and this is our vision. And if you have a different thought, then we can definitely discuss in between the process. Or if
Mm-hmm.
we want to discuss out of the interview process, ki, hey, I want to have a 30-minute call with the say CTO or maybe the CEO or maybe someone operation head. We are happy to
Okay.
have it before in the final decision, because
Mm-hmm.
I want him to be comfortable about being happy with the process and make sure that he's aligned for Dunzo as a process. We don't want him to come just for another offer. At this
Mm-hmm.
level, it is really, really important. The guy should be 100% aligned with the company or the work that he is willing to do. And we have seen that they are like, sometimes we try to align a team with senior member, and sometimes he also comes up with a plan. Hey, this is my learning from last 10 years of my career. I want to move into this role now. And if definitely we have a role, we try to give the best of the best opportunity. And yes, we work together and make sure that there's opportunity before even the interview process is happening.
Okay, great. Great insights, Ankur. So, Alok, you want to add on the critical pointers which you see like top for top management hiring?
Yeah, no, I think y- basically top leadership hiring in a startup, as and when it happens and the team expands, essentially is about, to some extent, replacing the founder's role in many areas, right? I mean, what does a founder really do? They're
Mm-hmm.
able to set the vision, remind people of the vision and where we are headed. Uh,
Exactly.
they're able to energize people towards that cause, right? They're able to take decisions quite fast most of the time, right? Because speed is an important
Mm-hmm.
attribute for startups. Uh, so you want essentially your leaders to, the ultimate success metric for a leader is that can they make a founder redundant, right, in
Mm-hmm.
that particular function. And so you look for these traits right from day one, like do they demonstrate some risk taking ability, like in their past have they actually taken some risks in their career, right? Or in their last role, did they try out a new project? They could have failed, it's okay, but
Mm-hmm.
what is it that they tried outside of the box, right? Are they creative? I think we've realized over time that creativity is an important attribute for most startup leaders, right? Like to some extent, you can't be, which is why a lot of big company leadership hires fail in startups, right? Because basically they're process driven, they're more thinking inside the box and trying to check the boxes all the time, right? I think that doesn't really work. Most of the gray areas that startups deal with, they require some creativity to solve those challenges, and every day throws a new challenge, right? In fast growing startups. So
Mm-hmm.
you want people who are not bogged down by those challenges, who can take some risk to try out something. They can tell whether it's a type 1 decision, type 2 decision, basically the Jeff Bezos framework, like is it a reversible decision, irreversible decision? If it's reversible, then you have to move fast, try it out, test it, right? So do they have that kind of mindset of iterative growth? It's
Yeah.
basically everything you would look for in a founder's mindset. To some extent, you won't find all of them in any particular leader, but to some extent, you want the leaders to embody those traits, right, to be a successful leader in a stage company. So we look for all those.
Great. So, great. Like, I'm taking my notes also on this, some of the key pointers. Uh, we come to the last question, which I have prepared. Just a few pointers for all the audience. Alok, you can go first. What are the best learnings which you have, like about identifying the right people, which you have learned throughout, like building your company for the last like 15 years, 17 years, so down the line? What are the best learnings about identifying the right set of people? Two, three pointers, or maybe more, like whatever you
Yeah,
can.
sure.
Yeah.
No, so our best hires have actually been people who were either referred to us by our employees, uh,
Mm-hmm.
by by other ixigems, or people who applied directly to us.
Okay.
If I just do some stats on all the successful people here and
Yeah.
go back to how did we source them,
Mm-hmm.
those two would be the biggest channels, right? So I think
Yeah.
we encourage people to keep referring good people in their teams, and we have very strong referral incentives to do that. Of course, Instahyre kind of platforms also help. I'm not. I think we have made a lot of hires through platforms as well,
Okay.
and some of those have turned out very well as well. But I think if we are able to at least use the network of our employees to do a soft check, ref check of some sort, it
Mm-hmm.
especially for leadership hires. In fact, that's a very critical thing to do. You should do at least two or three ref checks of people who have
Mm-hmm.
reported into them, people they have reported into, and maybe a peer as well, right? Because then you will get three very different perspectives.
Yeah.
Try to do that for most leadership hires. I think um, um, yeah, I mean, look, it's it's basically becoming very repetitive to say this, but I think still creating the right framework for testing a cultural fitment, right? And that takes some time, and investing the right amount of time to build the hiring process,
Mm-hmm.
so that you are able to test all the things you want to test. It's very important to do that upfront. um, and I think we've spent in the last few years considerable time to get to that point where we know that the cost of making a bad hire is super high, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's okay to miss some very good guys out there, but the other error actually is worse.
Yeah.
So and then being able to fire fast, fail fast, whatever, right? If you figure out it's not working, I think forcing managers to decide whether it's a good hire or not within the first 2-3 months, right? And with if you have enough data to support that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, very important, right? Because you don't want somebody who's maybe not them. You can give them some more time, but beyond a point, you need to take that hard call.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
that's also very important at times.
Great. Great insights, Alok. So over to you, Ankur. Um, what are the three, four learnings which you want to share of identifying the right people?
I think referral has really helped us to drive really good hires from different from the old members of Dunzo also. People keep referring. First, not in Dunzo, but they keep referring their peers, colleagues, and it's really good to have that community still active. And we have actually second, I think Instahyre for sure. Yes, Malak. We have literally had really good mid-level and junior level hire from Instahyre. And along with that, I think one of the learning I have seen that people who are applying with a clear so some I really get lots of referral, and some of my our team members also get referral, direct referral. People ask us to refer to the company. So I
Mm-hmm.
think people I realize that they have written a detailed email about themselves, and I found some of them are really interesting where people have cracked some of their real-time problem, maybe some setting up some web application which is live in some bucket. These people may not be from IITs, and so they want to get interviewed at Dunzo through different referral sources. So I usually refer them after looking at the profile where they can be best suited in. So that is second bucket. Third, I think LinkedIn reach has literally helped us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if we try to map the right candidates and try to find, uh, if we try to understand our problem statement, and if we can just share the details to the candidates, so I think they are really good candidates we have seen in the past where we could have
Okay.
converted them. By the right information, people are happy to try and discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, referral is one of the channels which we have pushed in last 2 years aggressively, and it has given us back. Like we have, if I see like some of the top 20% of the Dunzo, I will
Mm-hmm.
they are from referral, full referral from. And I've seen the referral. The best part of referral is the chain game that A refer B, B will refer, might refer C and D, and then
Mm-hmm.
it create a chain, and it's really helpful for them.
Great. So,
And one of
yeah.
the learning I from actually ThoughtWorks days. I have
Okay.
not worked with ThoughtWorks, but I have seen ThoughtWorks have a great wall where you can see X has referred Y, Y has referred Z. So they have
Okay.
created a wall of referral where you can
Acha.
see how many people you have referred and how many people you have chain you have created. So it's really interesting to see.
That's a gamification of referrals. Nice. Okay, so we have ended the question answer round, and we have some questions from the audience which we will take. We will take some selected questions. So Sujuna has asked, like, what are the steps you follow to retain current employees? Like Alok or Ankur, anyone can take, or maybe both can take. Over to you guys.
Alok?
You wanna go first, Ankur?
I will say retain. I will say that it's all about the growth path. I really believe that people are joining startups and mid-level startups like us,
Mm-hmm.
mostly for the growth and learning. If we can give them a clear vision for growth and learning, I think there's not much need to be done for retention. You have to give them a really good work, and it does not mean that you have to rewrite everything again and again. You have to give them a path where they can grow themselves, and definitely there's a helping hand from the manager, from the architect, from the leadership team. And one of the learning I've seen that if teams are people are growing really fast in mid-level startup like Dunzo, I think they will always be happy and they will keep referring people. So I don't think we will do extra curricular activities for retention. I think it's a daily job that we have to all have to do together.
Okay. Alok, you want to add on this?
Yeah, I think most people don't leave organizations; they leave their managers or they leave their teams, right? So
Mm.
I think people, which is why for us again boils down to culture, right? If you create a culture where that the likelihood of somebody being pissed off with their manager is low just because of cultural reasons, right? And I think to that extent, you have to take hard calls at times, right? And you just have to
Mhm.
demonstrate culture through your actions. It's not about the
Yes.
poster on your wall. So I
Mhm.
think the best way to basically keep people excited is to make sure that you live up to the values that you preach,
Mhm.
as founders, as leadership team yourself, right? Because it's easy to talk about those things, but it's harder to live up to them. And I think of course the growth part, the learning part is super critical, because people come and work for startups or growth companies because they want to see faster growth, they want to create an impact, they want to be part of creating something big together, and they need to continue seeing a path towards that even as they grow within the organization, right? So you need to continue showing them that path of and we have examples of people who have grown all the way to leadership, right? Starting with
Mhm.
a entry level. So you need to create those role models, and create a culture so good that people go and talk about it and brag about it, right? Basically, that should be the reason for others to apply to you. And the last reason why somebody should leave you is your culture. It could be for personal reasons, it could be for going for studying or starting their own company. Those are good reasons to
Mhm.
leave
Okay.
companies, but it shouldn't be because of who you are as a company, right?
Okay.
If you're able to, and that's a long-term solve. It doesn't that takes years to sort of get to a point where you believe we are there, right?
Mhm.
But it's very hard. I mean, keeping that there requires those filters, those sacrifices, and we've seen this. Like during COVID, we did not fire anybody in the team, and we were very transparent about what we were going through.
Mhm.
uh, and most people voluntarily came back and said we can live with a salary cut for a few months, right? uh,
Okay.
that sort of loyalty is hard to sort of create without that sort of transparency, or culture that I'm talking about, with empathy for each other, knowing that we are all going through this, all humanity is going through this. So let's all stick around and try to get to the other side and try to grow despite all the challenges, right? So I think creating that team spirit during the difficult moments is the hardest part, but if you can crack that, I think retention becomes much simpler.
Great. Okay. So I hope Sujana has got the answer. Next question is, what can be done to bridge the gap between tier 2 and tier 3 colleges? How to properly gauge tier 3 candidates? Tier 3, I suppose, will mean like the college segregation. Yeah. So anyone can take.
Uh, so sorry, I don't know. Matlab, I usually don't filter any candidates using their college or not. To be honest,
Okay.
I usually look into their last, maybe for junior level it is only last 2 3 years. For senior level
Hmm.
it can be 10 years. I don't
Okay.
think I filter anyone with the college, and
Hmm.
I, I don't know. I have never filtered anyone with the college and criteria.
Yeah, I don't think we have any biases or filters for tier 2 3
Hmm.
at all. Like I think it's just the same. uh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like another question came up. How do you deal with like last stage offer drop-offs or last day offer drop-offs? Anyone can answer, or both of you can answer. I think you have a lot of pointers on this.
I think we used to deal a lot more with them in during the early stage. I mean,
Okay.
when because mostly it's about people not being sure about joining you, right? Like,
Yeah.
that they got a better opportunity, or so they weren't really sold about joining you in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
We deal a lot less with those these days, to be honest. Like most of the people who get to uh, you know probably 1 in 100 people, 1 in 50 people would be doing that at this stage.
Mm.
Also, it happens a lot more during the frothy times when there are people with 3 offers, 4 offers, etc. And I think this year is seeing a correction in that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Ankur, I want to add something.
I think similar way where people we are actually working with candidates, all the candidates in the interview process level, where we try to give them more insight about Dunzo, what we are doing, and
Mm-hmm.
why we are doing that. Because people have different questions around the team, leadership, data points, and all. And the problem is right now people are only looking at this. Maybe sometimes people question about the funding, IPO, different variety of questions. So we want to make sure that we are transparent. That this is the problem statement. This is the tech problem statement. The business problem statement. How they are connected. We are doing that, and how we are doing that. Yes, we are dropout for sure, and we make sure that based upon our hiring planning, we do offer accordingly. And I think it's a reality. It's a based upon the market and different environment situation. And I think we are all last 2 3 years have been like planning all this, starting from the funnel till the offer. So I
Okay.
think that has been a learning process for always. What are the problem statement? Why people are dropping? We try to understand uh, what could we have done better,
Mm-hmm.
or is it our mistake somewhere where we could have done better, then we should improve on it. And there are cases where people have 3 4 offers, they want to play around, then we don't want to be in that game for sure.
Great. So we come to the last question. After that, we'll wrap up the session. Last question is from my side for both of you. Who was your first hire? Alok and Ankur, like who was your first hire? Any experiences with the first hire? Like any interesting things with your first hire? And who was the first hire?
Hello,
Yes.
go ahead. Yeah.
So our first hire actually was someone who helped us build the rest of the team, right? She
Okay.
was heading our HR, admin, and all the functions that support the founders, and really helped us recruit the first few people. I mean, if I talk about the first few tech hires, Vibhu, Karun, Rajnish, these kind of 3 names come to my mind, and most of these guys actually went on to create their own companies actually over time. In fact, most of our first 30 hires became entrepreneurs over the next few years. Like they stuck around with us for more than 5 6 years, but then
Mhm.
started their own things. I think that's what early hires typically do.
Okay, great. So the Ixigo Mafia was created like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
first few hours was very. I think learning for me because it's very hard to pitch a new company when there is a. I think we started in 2015, right? There are
Hmm.
lots of different boom is going on housing.com and different companies having
Uh-huh.
big. So I think the best part is all the first 3 hours still working in Dunzo right now,
Okay.
and they have like seen all the faces for Dunzo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that time it was not more about the interview. Honestly, like I literally have like we had an interview process for them also, but it was really small. The idea was that are you willing to work and work with our vision, and definitely we are happy to make you grow in the organization. But because first we don't have a team, we don't know there will be any program manager or there will be a testing team. So first we was very crucial, and we had all one backend, one iOS, one Android to make sure that we are all three stack ready. So it was like very learning opportunity because we have to understand the different problem statement that people are facing in different companies. And I actually honestly reach out to people on LinkedIn and some of my old friends. So if you guys are available and can refer someone. So one of
Mm-hmm.
them actually referred a friend. So that we actually. So one of
Yeah.
the best part we realized that early hire is if it is through refer, then you don't have to do a ref check and all. So you
Okay.
can
That
ask
saves you
them
time.
at least one tick is done.
Ah.
Second, you can just ask some of the feedback in the past organization that tick is done, and just ask them for some of the coding practices. And I think most of the things are sorted. And we all assume that people can learn technology. There's my firm belief that if you give them a process, you give them an onboarding process, people can learn technology. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about that. So I usually check for attitude.
Okay.
Are you okay working with me or Mukund or maybe other people कि ये environment है ये office है this is the problem statement are
Okay.
you
Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Ankur, for joining in, giving us time, and sharing some very valuable insights about culture, about the first hire, about all the things which you have done. And with that, we come to the first episode of the Founders Roundtable to a wrap. Okay. Thank you, guys, for joining in. And this episode will be available everywhere. So, like, we will send you the links. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, folks, for joining in. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.